Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. So it's a true honor for me to be in front of all you. Being the moderator of such roundtable is a true honor. And for 45 minutes, we are going to hear explanation of what the Defense Innovation Accelerator for the North Atlantic really is, and what is the aim of all its constituents and participants. And we are going to hear with an even greater interest, as we can welcome here 5 of the most knowing people regarding Diana, each in their area and domain. So we are, dear colleagues and friends, we are all delighted to have you here. So Mrs. McQuiston will start. She's the chairwoman of the board of directors of Diana. Then Professor Deep Shenna is the managing director of the Diana, mainly working in the London Imperial College. Major General Patrick Aufort is the director of the French Defense Innovation Agency. Signor Stefano Serra is the president of the accelerator Takeoff in Torino. And Mr. Gary Bagot is the global sales and business development manager in Airwave. So, Mrs. McQuiston, as we are in France, you are going to open fire. Would you please introduce our audience with the Diana and the ground reasons of its birth?
This is a really exciting time for NATO and defense innovation. The Defense Innovation Accelerator, Diana, was set up to really be able to tap into the alliance, tap into a lot of the entrepreneurs and startup companies and technology ideas that want to be able to develop their ideas for defense and security, and looking at all sorts of new technologies that can provide capabilities, not only in the defense and security market, but also the commercial market. Walking the floor out here, I can see how much is going on. Startup companies with UAVs that are doing some amazing work in solar power UAVs that were 20-person company. So this is the type of innovation, the ideas that we're seeing were these startup companies that want to be able to not only accelerate their business idea, but accelerate their technology for capabilities in the defense and security side. So being able to replicate this sort of innovation across the alliance is going to be critical. And NATO's recognized that and specifically stood up Diana across all the NATO countries so that we can put up challenges out there and have lots of what we would call non-traditional startup companies, entrepreneurs be able to put in their ideas, accelerate the business and the technology, and then be able to work with a lot of the end users in the market, be able to understand the whole ecosystem in the industrial base. And then be able to rapidly put their solution forward and accelerate their company as well. So it's an exciting time at NATO, and Diana is a critical part of being able to kick this off.
Okay, and would you explain us the way you see Diana can complete the NATO organization?
Within the larger NATO organization, there's also an innovation effort across the board, looking at not only operations, and operations beyond a lot of what people think of from an armament standpoint, but a lot of the missions that we go through across the board, you know, responding in different mission capabilities, looking at challenges like the Turkey earthquake and how we had to put services there, and how the alliance can work together to get interoperability, and how can we reach out to the startup companies and work more directly with them within the alliance to be able to complete these challenges that we have. NATO's also put together a sister organization called the NATO Investment Fund. So a lot of what Diana's doing is being able to discover a lot of these startup companies, be able to help them value their intellectual property, their business processes, but also introduce them to the military capabilities and needs and market, but then also be able to test and demonstrate and experiment with their ideas. And after they get to a certain level of maturity and the solution's successful, being able to rapidly adopt that technology into the NATO alliance. And also, how do you invest and finance these efforts? So the NATO Investment Fund is working with Diana, putting together trusted capital so that we can actually be able to get that venture capital side too, so they can be successful as a company in their dual-use technology.
Yeah, thank you. So NATO is traditionally a defense organization. How do you think the alliance will step into the dual-use area?
Well, you know, it is traditionally a diplomatic and armaments point, but the technology that we need today for interoperability and for use, if you really look at the technology, even in space and other domains that we're in, it is dominated by the technology and accelerated by commercial technology. So how can we harness that engine, that economic engine, for our own security is going to be really what we're looking at. And the problem set that we have is quite large. It's obviously a concern with regards to traditional defense, but then climate change, a lot of the challenges that we have in health and in a lot of the issues that we're dealing with right now across the board that we actually deploy people in mean that there's a lot of technology that we need to stay on the leading edge and to be able to manage the efforts that we have right now.
Many thanks. Professor Chen, so you are the first managing director of the DNR. DNR has celebrated its first anniversary recently. So looking back, how would you appreciate the results you have already obtained?
Yeah, I mean, I think the results have already been, it's fairly early to be able to tell what the final ramifications will be, but we're already very encouraged with the results of what we've achieved. And just to build on to a little bit of what Barbara was saying, I mean, one of the things we're very conscious of is that security, defense, and resilience problems are becoming increasingly interrelated and increasingly complicated. And in fact, what we need is to have a vehicle through which we can encourage and help to grow the innovative ideas which can meet the challenge of dealing with that very complex interrelated problem space which we see today, manifest in things like COVID-19 and some of the conflicts that we're seeing, but also this trend is going to continue. So this is the rationale for what we're trying to do. And so with that in mind, what we're trying to do is to reach out to as diverse a portfolio or a community of problem solvers, particularly in the startup space, so that we can get as many minds, as many brains as possible examining these problems and then trying to figure out ways in which we might solve them. And so this is really at the very heart of what we're trying to do. So if you look at the last year of what we've managed to achieve, you know, you don't really know how successful you're going to be with this kind of proposition until you actually test the market, shall we say. So we've just run our first pilot call over the summer. We had 3 challenge areas on energy resilience, on sensing and surveillance in challenging environments, and also in the secure transfer of information and data. And we had something like 1,300 applications just off that pilot program. And that means that the narrative, if you like, or our offer, our proposition of needing this kind of vehicle is validated just by the fact that we've seen so much interest. And the quality of that interest has also been very, very rewarding to see that in fact there's not only a volume there, but there's also a depth and quality. So we're now in the process of actually contracting and putting on contract the first cohort. That will happen. In fact, we'll be announcing the results officially on the 30th of November. So everyone should look out for that. And that will be a real watershed moment for us, because at that stage we will have our first cohort of startups looking to start the accelerator program formally then in the new year.
Yes. I guess that in your position, life is not only an easy way every day. So what would you explain us some of the main obstacles that you have to face?
Yeah, obstacles is one way of looking at it, but I guess challenges is probably another, is probably a more positive way of looking at it. There are multifaceted challenges in doing something like this. We are positing and putting forward the next generation of thinking around what it means to talk about defense, primarily. That is a thought leadership proposition to match the rapidly changing environment that we see. So one of the challenges is to make sure that we get that message across clearly and that it is a relatable message and communities like this can understand what we're trying to say. So that's a big challenge. The other challenges involve running a startup. So as the managing director of Diana, I am effectively running a very unique kind of startup in itself, which has got a new proposition, has got a new team, has got new structures. So there is an eye that needs to be kept on how you build the organization, at the same time how you also deliver some of these results externally, and how, as I said, you couple to the innovators that you're seeking to bring into the space. And one of the big challenges we have, of course, is trying to go and reach innovators who wouldn't ordinarily think that this is a space for them to work in. So this is about expanding the well, if you like, or the community of interest that we could engage with in the years and decades to come.
So I hope you are going to tease us a little bit. What are your working plans and your projects for the near future?
With respect to follow-on calls, or
Only for Diana.
Well, no, I mean, as far as Diana is concerned, I mean, as I said, there's some very exciting news just around the corner. So, you know, my appeal is for everyone to keep track of our website, keep track of our LinkedIn presence, and you will see, as I said, at the end of this month, some real good detail on exactly what the first cohort is going to look like. Running that first accelerator program next year is going to be very interesting because it's the first time that we're going to see the whole system actually working. And then in next year, there will be another call. And so simultaneous to us running the first accelerator, there will be then an expanded list of challenge areas from the first 3 that we've published this year, and a new call and a second cohort to come. So there's plenty of things coming down the pipe. And so those are mostly the things that we're planning on at the moment.
Thank you very much. So having heard the chairwoman and the managing director, I'm now going to ask to a principal member of the BOD, donc Major General Aufort. You are the director of the French Defense Innovation Agency. Why would France choose to jump on the Diana train while your innovation budget exceeds €1 billion a year?
In fact, there is so many answers to this question, so many reasons to jump into the train, as you said. And finance is not the most important point, in fact. Speaking about innovation is most of the time a question of state of mind and a question of environment. And bringing together different culture, different solutions, different actors, different ideas is most of the time the best way to innovate and to accelerate. And that's exactly, in fact, what proposed Diana with the Diana models, really including all the country of the alliance, all the capacities of the alliance, with a huge footprint with the support of test centers, support of accelerators. It's exactly what we are looking for in order to accompany innovation. So it's for me the main reason to jump into the train. In addition, we have so many issues to solve, so many needs for our forces. So we need to use every opportunity to solve this issue, to solve these needs, to provide answer to these needs. What we do on our own, on France side, working with Diana, working with Europe, working on a bilateral or multilateral cooperation, we need to use all this possibility to provide our forces with answers to their needs, to the lack of solution. In addition, what is important with Diana and the idea to support dual-use solution is that the actors of the ecosystems that we would like to support, startups, SMEs, these actors does not want only to build a mock-up, build a prototypes. They would like to provide our forces with equipment. They need a market. And with Diana, we provide them with a really huger market than what we can do on their own. So I think it's really the third major reason to join Diana. And in addition, Diana is really a full systems, deep on Barbara describe all the tools put it in place in the Diana environment with a challenge program, accelerators to support growing of startups, and also we are feeling, all the country in the alliance, on the steps after, the capacity to acquire the technology we are going to support. It's called the rapid adoption services, and this is another reason to join Diana, to jump into the train, this idea to not only support the technology, but the idea to provide support until the moment where the system could be in the hand of our forces.
Thank you. Just jumping to another topic. In innovation, one of the most famous words, and sadly, is the death valley. Would you tell us about some initiatives of your agency to try and cross it? And then would you explain us what you expect from the Diana regarding it? And so maybe that would be one point of exchange between you and Deep.
With pleasure. I start, you will compliment. I will start by some facts that we can diagnostic and analyze in France, but I'm sure every country faces the same issue. We had an issue with innovation. We are able to support innovation, as I said earlier, until a mock-up, until a prototype. And then there is the death valley you describe. What is the reason of this death valley? The major reason is funding reason. And why? It's because we change the team in charge and we change the color of the money. In France, people in charge of supporting innovation, people in charge of the financing innovation are not the same than people in charge of armament programs. So equipment, it's not the same team, it's not the same color of the money. So you need to jump from one side to another, to the other. And the money dedicated to equipment is already a full programmation that is full. So you need to find a place. To solve that, after this analysis, we decided on, to reserve a certain amount of money dedicated to scaling up innovation project. And it works. To be frank with you, before we put this kind of process in place 2 years ago, we were able to scale up to 3-4 projects per year. With this kind of process, we know we are now scaling up between around 15 projects a year. So there is a need, and this is part of the solution. Another big part of the solution, to my mind, is acquisition methods, acquisition tools, contractual issues. We need more flexibility with contract. We need to find some specific rules, and in this part, I know every country has its own regulation, so we could not provide a solution for everybody except initiatives such as rapid adoption system with Diana, for example. And maybe I will let Deep talk about that. On our side, what we can do in France, we can try to invent new tools for acquisition, or to have a better use of existing tools. And for example, we have a dedicated process called partenariat d'innovation, innovative partnership. I think it could be the accurate translation, which is a possibility for us to go from development until buying equipment. But these tools today is too much complicated to use. And it's the reason why what we can do is to simplify the use of this kind of tools. And maybe my last proposition or idea to try to provide solution for this scale-up issue and this depth valley issue is to have another way to work with the way we build capacity. instead of supporting technology, supporting innovation, and then going to our capacity team who is trying to say, hey, I have that. Does anybody could integrate this solution in his equipment? It's too late, in fact. We need to work the opposite. We need to work before with this team in charge of programs in order to identify the area where they are looking for solution and to provide this solution at the right moment to this team.
Okay. Prof. Sitchiner, a little compliment?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on a very fundamental point of why we're doing any of this at all, actually, which is that what you need to be able to do is not be able to just fund an idea at some, say, research level, but once that idea gets to a stage where you think it might be productized, you then need to be able to put some capital in to make that idea grow, but then you need further investment later on to see it scale up, and then you need access to market to really see that something like this is going to thrive. And so effectively, as Barbara was saying earlier on, when you put Diana, which is a non-equity taking, non-IP violating grant fund, alongside the NATO Innovation Fund, which is the world's first multi-sovereign venture capital fund, in fact, a proper VC equity taking fund, together this sort of creates an innovation engine, a growth pathway that helps to smooth out the issues around the TRL valleys of death that you're talking about. But the other very important aspect, just to reiterate something I was saying earlier on, with a next generation vision of what defense and security problems are and how we go after those solutions, and the dual use proposition, what we're doing is multiplying the surface area of opportunities for each one of those startups in terms of market access. From an investment perspective, of course, now this looks like a far more healthy proposition for investment growth. And so you can think of this Diana NATO Innovation Fund engine, not just in isolation, but as something which we're hoping which will perturb the market in such a way that other similar entities will crowd in around both of these specific organizations to create a much broader and richer ecosystem than they might offer on their own.
I'll add one more thing too. We're really creating the environment where the startup company, the inventors can come in and really accelerate their learning and understanding of what the problems and challenges are in the market, and can work directly with the market and be able to work with the ecosystem. And you walk this floor here, even with the discussions, a few of the startup companies that are here with the larger companies and with the defense end users, they're learning a lot about what the challenges are, and they can modify their product and they can really experiment and test and work to be able to meet the market needs. But the market needs are often the commercial needs as well. So it's a hand-in-hand operation. We can point to a lot of energy technologies out here, a lot of the communications technology. These are key dual-use technologies that can be really accelerated for defense and security.
So we have talked about money, but some of our colleagues are those who will lever it. So, Signor Serra, your accelerator is called Takeoff. It's well known in the Italian innovation ecosystem. Would you first tell us the reasons why you are approaching defense business? Because there is more defense than business generally.
But the reason why a country should invest in innovation is just outside here. And I think the proof of the innovation. Takeoff has been started 4 years ago, and basically it was a country decision to say we need to take the best and brightest that we have and give them a chance to be faster. That's why a fund has been dedicated to that, and it has been placed in Torino because of the ecosystem. And when we say ecosystem, means there are all the elements to make it happen, which means research, technology transfer, industry. Takeoff is nothing different. I mean, they come from, Takeoff and Diana, they come from the same, I would say, purpose, the same meaning. And we should recognize that NATO demonstrated the fact that they can fast track. We can fast track an idea to something that happens. Because from since we had the idea to now, that we have already the first batch of startups, has been very, very few months, I would say, since the green light to take off, I would say, Diana. So we matched Diana and Takeoff. So the meaning and the purpose is basically the same. And I think if we look at innovation, innovation by itself means nothing. We have to cast our mind to what is really the current present we have to face. Everything becomes obsolete in years. We are not anymore in the comfort zone that we had for decades, because the world is changing and the environment or the menaces we have to manage, put it in this way, are changing on a daily basis. The unexpected is next door. And I think the technology that we mastered in the past and that gave us a competitive advantage is any longer there if we don't pick the best and the bright and we give them a chance to make it faster. And make it faster means to get to the proof of concept, to get sustained, because this is a bunch of guys that have a bright idea. They can master eventually the technology, but they need what is the, I don't know, the financial vision supporting getting the funds, because 5 months acceleration it goes very fast. And I would say that the major benefit of takeoff for these companies will come after the 5-6 months acceleration, when the bunch of them will get additional funds, will get real investors, and after the test centers, and that's unique. The breadth of test centers that Diana can offer to these startups, it's unique. And after the testing in real conditions, in real environment, and most of the cases in military environments, that will give them a real chance to fast track from the idea to the sales of a product, to fulfilling a need in the defense.
Thank you. How do you think your taking part to Diana will make your business evolve?
To be honest, Takeoff has, we have startups coming from abroad, but they mostly are willing to set up their facilities in Italy. That's something that, if I look at the track record, what I think Diana will add is the global perspective. I mean, we heard about the 1,300 applications and the very few that passed through the net, which means we really have the chance to pick the best and bright, and that will give us, I would say, an advantage, but not just to Torino. I mean, to be honest, Diana, it's a NATO initiative. It's not the place where the accelerator. The role of the accelerator is to put the startup in the best condition to extract the most value from the 5-6 months acceleration. That's, I think, so it's not Torino, it's Diana.
And the power of NATO is the fact that we have all the members. We have 31, soon to be 32 countries that we are actually being able to pull together, like Deep talked about in the NATO Investment Fund, 23 as a multi-sovereign fund. But here we're looking at a market across all the NATO countries, and that exposure as well for the entrepreneur and the accelerator for where these ideas are going. So it's really a multiplier, and it's important for the nations to be able to see how they can be able to look at their innovation position, where these ideas are, and be able to accelerate and be agile about having to adopt these across the alliance.
Many thanks. Mr. Magot, so Elwave is one of the French companies who have competed into the first Diana challenge. Why did you do so? Why did you choose to compete?
Excellent question. Thank you. I would say, obviously, first, when we look to the topic that we want to address, Diana, with dual technology, especially for us, the sensing and surveillance challenge, there was a first match. We were exactly answering all the required task, objective with this challenge, which is about seabed characterization, object detection, change detection, and so on. So that's the first one. And I think after the the first very good surprise for us was to look at the maps that you have on your website about the test center. You mentioned it already today, but that's extremely important for us, especially now, because we are launching commercially our sensor. It's a very important month for us, not because of these events, but also because last week we shipped our very first commercial unit to Middle East. A very important step for us. But now, beyond to go with these early adapters for new technologies, when we look to discuss with potential industrial client and so on, they are interested, but they look for evidence of the technology, how it works in operation, on site, and so on. They will ask for this electric sensor that we develop, does it work as well in the Baltic Sea, in the North Sea, in the Atlantic, in the Mediterranean Sea, and so on. And when we look at your maps of test bed, we see that you have a test area in Italy at the CMRE. You have another one, for instance, with the Fraunhofer in Rostock, where we have also not only buried unexploded ordnance, but also cables, pipelines. So for us, it's a great opportunity to qualify our technology for application in the naval domain, obviously, but also for the offshore industry, the offshore renewables, and seabed exploration.
Well, so I wish you the best, because the results of the challenge will be announced next week. So I cross my fingers.
Thank you.
But let's imagine that you are selected. You'd be working with France. You'd be working with NATO. So one day or the other, you'll have to make a choice. So which one would you do?
No, I think it's really complementary. I'll just give a bit some context about L-Wave. So we are a spin-off from a French university founded in 2018. Before us, you have 10 years academic research from the biorobotic department from this university. Then foundation of L-Wave with a patent, and we take 6 years of industrialization to make a first commercial product. So the road is extremely long. So now we have the testing phase, which is very important. And Diana is really adapted for us on that. But also, this technology, we have just the beginning, actually. And we need to not only see what this sensor can do today, but also how we can make evolving our technology to go further. And for instance, for this one, France has also some program, what that we call RAPID, for instance, that can support also longer R&D program where we can go deeper in the technology. So I think there is really synergies between short-term accelerator testing, but also deepening the technologies.
I'm glad you said so, because I'm going to quote my director. All these structures must complete and not compete. So it's good. Okay. I think we have time for questions and answers. So would someone like one? Yes. Where are the mic?
It's open, you can talk.
Hello. Thank you very much for your interventions. I have a question with respect to the level of maturity of technologies, because we heard a lot about startups, pilots, and even more mature technologies. But what about SMEs with already, I would say, existing and with existing solutions on the market? How interesting? What would be the path to get it to Diana? Thank you very much.
I can take this. Yeah, I'm happy to answer that question. I mean, it's easy to get obsessed with technology readiness levels as a scale. I will just say that first as a caveat. These are just convenient scales, but I don't adhere to them. You know, we don't try and sort of stick to them in a way that is kind of overly obsessive. Let's put it that way. So that being said, what you're really looking at in the Diana Fund and the accelerator sort of program is inside that 3-4 TRL zone. But I should also say that we are doing exactly what the last question was saying as well, which is not only are we going to operate in that zone, but we want to act as a broker in the future to make sure that we can connect the fundamental R&D that might be happening in places like universities with the potential to transform into 3-4. And so we'll be working on the left-hand side, if you like, of the 3-4 scale to kind of connect in with our innovators who are doing fundamental R&D, because it's an oscillation that happens. Typically, it's not a nice linear process, as anybody who's run a deep tech company will know. On the right-hand side, going to the higher TRLs, what we of course want to try and do is be able to broker opportunities of growth. So if the Diana Fund is not, let's say, the appropriate vehicle, we might then pass it on to our NIF colleagues, for example, at the NATO Innovation Fund, or even broker to other opportunities with our test centers and accelerator networks. And this is something, this brokering function, that we are hoping to develop and evolve in the years to come. It's obviously the first year, but we're hoping to grow a database of these kind of brokering opportunities so that, in fact, we become that kind of trusted broker. And that really will be when Diana is a much more mature entity.
It'll be important to create the ecosystem of mentors and industry so that we can actually accelerate the opportunities for these startup companies. So as Diana grows, being able to put those mentors and that connection in place is going to be extremely important.
Another question?
Hi there. Hello? Can you hear me? Good. So my question is, does Diana help these companies like L-Wave, for example, if and when they get selected? Because it's not just about technology, right? When you insert technology into the battlefield, it invariably changes the people and the process, not only in fielding, but in prosecuting whatever that mission is. Does Diana help that company in doing that as well?
Well, I think it's important that they get exposure of what the technology is and get, as they're developing their solution, that they get exposure as well to what it's like in the field and how we're doing the missions, because the use of the technology will really be adapted by that discussion and that learning that goes on from the inventor and the people in the field. So being able to do that across NATO and really understand how the use case is and the operability, and bringing in sort of NATO's understanding as well as the opportunities these technology will open up for them is a back and forth discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I think, what you're talking about, I suppose, in a security context, and is often referred to as concepts of operations. What you talk about in more general technology terms is requirements elicitation and matching to the right use case. So this is a dual use operation here. So we're looking for commercial and more traditional security and defense application spaces, but the problem is common across both, right? You can come up with a solution and you can get money, that's one thing, but the real value of this program is being able to very rapidly understand the problem a little bit better. Sometimes the problem holder themselves don't understand the problem very well. So it's a co-evolution and exploration of the problem space. And if we can connect very quickly to those authorities and the people who understand the problem space and the potential innovators, they can very rapidly converge on the perfect solution or to the right use case. So it's a very good question, because actually this ecosystem that we talk about, I mean, people talk about it in broad terms, but the reason for the networks being so important is because it allows that rapid evolution and a convergence onto probably the optimal solutions.
And you're absolutely right. And I think there's another avenue of approach that I think that Diana has an approach, because I looked at your webpage, right? And it is, as a startup founder myself and a former US military officer, and also having worked for a large consulting firm, it's the education piece, right? Because the reason there is maybe 5 accepted companies out of those 1,300 is because as a startup, they might not have the background to understand the technical requirements and the constraints of the defense, operating in a defense environment, right? And it is this, I think that's what Diana lacks, and I'm sorry to say that Diana is great, but it lacks the education to us startup founders, because we don't know your requirement and we don't know your constraints.
That's the accelerator in the curriculum
Yeah.
there.
I just want to give a piece of experience. The world is full of startups. People with an idea, with mastering a technology, hopefully having the right team, and trying to get in a process that gives that transform that idea in a business, in SME first, and eventually in a unicorn. The point is, there are no training courses to get the right marks at the exam and pass it. Every accelerator has. I give you. We are not in the numbers of Diana, but even takeoff, you're talking about over 200 applications for 10 places. And we are not obliged to take 10. From time to time, we take 8 or 9, because if they are not at the right level, and we do not judge just the technology and the idea and the addressable market. One of the key values that we address and we judge is the team. Because the ability to deliver and to sustain an acceleration process, it's the team. That must be very, very clear. So you may have, and then there are no, to be honest, there are no training courses.
Well, if I might just add as well, just as a point of clarity, there is actually a formal curriculum, that startups will go through in the first 6 months. It involves building businesses in a good way, educating our startups on how to avail themselves and understand the kind of professional services, as well as knowing how to develop the technology and plot a pathway to success. So there is actually already quite a rich curriculum that we will deliver. So there's a formal process of learning, but we will use mentors and we will use the network to also supplement that with informal avenues as well. And that informal component is important because that's where the bespoke nature of the advice will come in per startup through the accelerator program. I'm an entrepreneur myself and a technologist too, so I fully appreciate the issues that you're talking about there. The other problem we're going to have to face is, of course, different companies are at different levels of maturity at different times, okay? So part of it is going to be some core stuff, then with some bespoke interventions per company. And again, I think this is something which will evolve as the years go on, right? It won't be perfect from
And I'm sure you understand, innovation happens within the technology sector, but it happens in the field as well when people are trying to think of all the different ways they need to use the technology.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. I just have 40 seconds to conclude. So many thanks for your interventions. I hope the DNI is clearer for our audience. Personally, I've heard pleasant words like cooperation, team, support, investment, and change the way of mind. So this is what I will retain from this round table. Many thanks to you. Many thanks to the audience.